Welcome one, welcome all to episode 177 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Saturday, May 13th, 2023. I am your host, Luke Lohr, the InsipidGhost, joined by my co-host, the intrepid Captain Logan. And in this episode, we look ahead to the Xbox Bethesda showcase. We'll discuss the pressures of Starfield in the wake of Redfall, and I'm sure somehow Logan's going to find a way to bring up Zelda, so here we are. As always, we hope you enjoy the show, and we like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made our gaming weeks better. But first, Logan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm getting a healthy amount of sleep. I'm playing games that are doing well. I've been having a lot of fun with that. Got a lot of plastic out of their boxes and on the couch right now, which is really, really fun to make sure cats don't chew on. But also really fun because my wife thinks I'm a child. To what I have to point out, I think that as well, and you're probably very correct. So,
plastic out of boxes, my friend. I think I know what you're alluding to, but for any listener that may indeed be out of the loop, let them know.
Oh man. Okay. So if you're not watching the YouTube version, you're missing a lot because there's a whole bunch on the back of my wall. And I've got these baseball cases from a store that just kind of sells them, but I've turned them into pop and amiibo stands. In fact, I've got two more that I bought that actually can't hang up right now because hangers are a weird size. But anyway, so I've got every Zelda amiibo, every single Zelda amiibo that has ever been put out, including like the Wolf Link one for the Twilight Princess remastered.
I sold that recently.
Oh, did you?
I did. Yeah.
Oh man, that's a hard one to get. But I've had them sitting in the box for years, not doing anything because I'm pretty much over with Breath of the Wild. Well, Tears of the Kingdom came out this week, and I am back in, and so now I've got like 20 some little amiibo sitting on the couch, just ready for that daily refresh, so I can get a whole bunch of meat, a whole bunch of herbs, and a whole bunch of weapons to go take on the new threats in the kingdom.
That's cool, man. Amiibo are weird, dude, because I went through a phase where I collected all of them. I wanted them. I had every Smash one at one point, right before they added DLC. I did all that, chased them all down. I had a bunch of the Zelda ones, including Wolf Link, which I loved. But when I was done with Breath of the Wild, and then I didn't get a Star Fox or a Metroid for a good amount of time, I kind of was done with my Switch, and they languished. And I think the only one that I have saved was Shovel Knight, which was not an official Nintendo one. But that's why
an official one. It's
well, the only Nintendo didn't make it.
No, they made it, but they didn't make the game, but they did make that. There was a lot of licensing that went into, and there's actually a really interesting interview out there with the devs from Yacht Club that said that making the amiibo is actually very easy, and they're not quite sure why more third-party companies don't actually do it. Because Nintendo was amazingly workable when it came to coming up with the Shovel Knight one. But you're not wrong. It is not technically a Nintendo property. It is like one of the rare third-party amiibos out there. But yeah, it's a pretty special one. That, and I think like the Chibi Robot one might be the other one.
Gotcha. That's cool, dude. So bottom line, Tears of the Kingdom is out, of course. Rave reviews. You told me prior to recording you stayed up last night and got some good time with it.
I spent pretty much all of yesterday playing. I think I've got maybe like 10 hours in before I went out, took a walk, went to the park, came back, had some dinner, and then hopped back in. But yeah, that game, it's hard to know like early on because it could be just be recency like hype
bias and such.
Yeah, could be hype, could be recency bias. It's hard to tell, like that kind of thing. But I'm genuinely having fun doing the new shrines that they've got and playing around with the new abilities. Like I genuinely love the building aspect that they have in there because I'm trying to do stuff that the game is like rubbing up against, like trying to build a trike. Like why would I need to buy a trike or build a trike? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like, but I'm doing it and I'm allowed to do it. That's the crazy thing. I just have to mentally put myself in a place where I can figure out how to do it. And they've done a great job of like strewing junk about the world in an effort to rebuild the world of Hyrule for all the denizens. So there's building materials everywhere, and it's so much fun to kind of build stuff for people and help them out and whatnot. And I don't know, it's the joys of Minecraft, but with purpose, because you're trying to help rebuild. You're trying to like overcome puzzles, and you don't get that in, or at least I don't get that in Minecraft. I don't see that in Minecraft. Maybe there is that, and I don't see it. Um, but it is so much like what Nuts and Bolts was doing for Banjo Kazooie. Just so refined though. Like it's so simple and it's so intuitive. And I think if they were to go, I think if Rare or someone else was to go back to Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts and learn from what Tears of the Kingdom learned from Nuts and Bolts, I think a remake of that game would be significantly well received.
Gotcha. I hope so. For
Yeah.
all the reasons. I'm sure Banjo will come up later in our episode, but and for the next few weeks probably. But yeah, I'm glad you're having fun. I've seen a lot of phallic builds out there.
A lot of people,
socials, which
yep.
makes sense. You know,
which, if you don't know, in the game industry is called the TDD, or no, TTD, which is the time to dick. So there's a lot of that going on right now. So don't be surprised if you have to kind of scrub through your social media.
Yeah.
But
All right. Well, there you go. But bottom line, early in, you're enjoying yourself. Because I know I was 150 plus hours in Breath of the Wild. Worthy successor early on, based on early 10-hour impressions.
I think I spent 7 hours in the quote unquote tutorial area for the game, and it's fun. There's so much more to the world now. Like I've seen a lot of criticism about, oh, God of War has got, is sequel is using the same map, and oh, Nintendo's getting away with murder for using Zelda, and it's Breath of the Wild. It's just the same map. It's not. There's so much new content to that world, and there's so much more natural content to that world. Like if you play Breath of the Wild, you're familiar with the wells, and usually like a wells would have like a chain to a rock, and you pick up the rock and you throw the rock in the well, and a Korok would pop up and be like, yeah, haha. In this one, I'll spoil this right now. It's a little thing; it doesn't really impact anything, but it'll push you to go seek these out. The wells are actual wells. Like there's a hole in there. It's a hole in the world, and you jump down, and there's a reason to jump down, and you're always rewarded for your exploration. And because there's so much new to this world, both like above the ground and below the ground, the exploration aspect of playing is so rewarding. So I'm having a ball. I'm going through all the new shrines. They're all unique. They're all just so interesting. I've really had a good time with that. And I honestly, I see what I loved about Breath of the Wild, and I'm just impressed that so far I'm enjoying it as much as I did the first time I played the game.
Good, man. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Really glad to hear that. I wore my Nintendo shirt in honor of you
Aw.
today. Yeah, I don't know if you can't tell it because I wear that put the mic, but I wore that in honor of you today. So really happy to hear that, buddy. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Logan, 8 minutes in, but I feel like we have to. I mean, how can you not talk about Tears of the Kingdom when you have a show, Xbox or not, about the gaming verse? This is one of those tentpole milestone events in gaming.
Yeah.
One that we hope Starfield will be, one that God of War was. These are ones where everybody around should be celebrating. We saw Xbox tweeting celebration. Congratulations to Nintendo. We
A
saw
lot of
PlayStation do the
studios.
same. Very
Sony
cool.
did too. Sony, I saw Sony posted about Zelda as well.
Yep,
So,
as they should. That's how it should be.
Yeah. How about you? You've
well,
had a really busy week, though.
It's been a rough week, and I actually allowed my presentation on the video version to kind of showcase that. My eye is getting better despite it looking worse, which is, knock on wood, it stays on that track because it's been rough, blurred vision and stuff. So it's improving, which is good. We are at end of grade testing next week, so I've been I've been worn. It's tiring. We had a teacher appreciation week this week, which, interestingly, like culturally, a lot less gifts, a lot less thank yous from all around, but those that give them, it really does mean a lot. And it was
I saw
cool
some of those.
Yeah, it was neat. Like the ones that took the time to say thank you, the students, the parents. Increasingly, that happens less and less, but it was really cool to see that. I got a really cool like Grogu 466 bead picture that a kid put together for me. I got some Xbox gift cards, which was really neat, and just some nice little goodie bags. One kid brought me some goodie bags. Anthony, I've talked about him before. I ate all this next day one. It
That's
just
great.
felt good. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Words of kindness, though. We're 10 minutes in, but I'm having a blast. I want to say words of kindness, please, to Erica Lindbeck, who was our guest
Yeah.
for our most recent interview that is live at the time of this recording. And she is a voice actor from any number of things, from Cyberpunk 2077 to Fortnite, Redfall, Hi-Fi Rush. I almost said Starfield. That was a reflex. That's not true. I don't know if that's true or not. But a ton of anime, just a really impressive person. But we had some great talks on air and off air. And we were led into some wonderful insight. Where the first interview she's done in years for some personal reasons. And it was just really, I was really honored that that was the case, because she looked at XEP ahead of time before she said yes. That meant the world. She was a pleasure to talk to. So I hope everybody checks out that interview. It was just cool. It was fun. She was happy, and it was a good time. And we learned a lot, and I enjoyed that. So she gets my words of kindness, despite being, a very high profile actor. It just meant a lot that she was willing to come on and join us.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I'll echo everything that you said too. She's fantastic. It was a real treat to get to talk to her about stuff that I hadn't heard in previous interviews in the lead up to ours, to kind of get some of those questions that I had come up answered. It was really nice.
Who do you want to shout out, buddy?
I'm gonna go with the Ancient Isles University crew. It's a group of Discord people, and the Ancient Isles is a region in Sea of Thieves. There's a Sea of Thieves mystery going on that I'm going to be covering on Keelhauled this week. That all of us have been working hard on trying to decipher the whole mystery for the first week, and we've been grinding at it for hours upon hours since Thursday. Everyone's putting everything they can into it, trying out different things, and everyone is being very courteous about everything. Like, we're all looking at things from a very because there's a prize. Like, only one person wins the prize, right? Mm-hmm. But much like Ready Player One, folks are coming together to try and uncover things, because it's only until that final stage, that fourth week, that things really start to get competitive. But if we can't get past the first week, then no one gets to have fun. And so far, nobody's figured it out. Like, and there's ways to check in the game to see, like, has anyone figured out the first mystery? And no one has, at least that I've been able to check as of last night. And it's just been really, really cool to have the Sea of Thieves community come together on this and work hard on trying to help each other out and be open with information, as opposed to like super secretive to try and get ahead of someone.
That's cool. So. That's cool. I always like a good Sea of Thieves mystery, because even if I don't participate, watching communities rally is always fun.
Yeah. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. It's hard to want to put that down with like so many games that we've been playing recently that we've been having a good time with. That to go and like work on the mystery. I'm like, oh God, I really need to finish Redfall. I really need to finish Jedi. I just got Tears of the Kingdom, but I can't stop thinking about this mystery.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you at all. Well, Logan, let's get to our Patreon shout outs. We had some great news in the Patreon space this week.
Yeah.
Would you mind reading our new members this week?
We got some fantastic new members. If you don't know, head over to patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. You'll be able to see the list of fantastic folks that we got. And this time we have probably the most famous Seamus in the history of the internet. I don't know other Seamuses that are more famous than this Seamus, but we got famous Seamus coming in at a tier 1. Thank you, Seamus, for supporting, and coming in at tier 3, which is the highest tier, the most supporter that you can get, besides maybe being Luke's mom, is none other than Robbie Bobby Miller. So thank you to our new patrons. Thank you so much. And as always, as we tend to do here, we tend to flop between one and the other. So Luke is going to have the honor of being able to call out all of our tier 2 and tier 3 shout outs for the patrons.
All right.
Are you ready, Luke?
I'm ready. Tier 2 and 3 shout outs for supporters over on Patreon. We begin with Robbie Bobby Miller, Silent Cypher, Xbox Skittle, African aka Charles Jones, Game Positive, Zach LeCouture, Jam Pack Sam, Matt Valdez, Neo Prime 33, Rick Davis, Xbox Mike 29, Matt Without Fear, The Lord Sir Master James Suddy, Brendan Myers, aka the Winter Gamer, Sony's VP of Marketing, Kevin Butler, Clint Coombs, DJ Hero, Dano12, and Red Beast. Thank you for being supporters on Patreon. Did I miss anybody, Logan? I always skip one by accident. Did I catch it?
Yep, you got it.
I got
You're
it.
good.
Okay.
I unmuted because I was like, oh God, I got to move the mouse. Oh, no, he's going to hear me.
Yep. I always, guys, because we have so many amazing supporters now, the line just gets longer, which is amazing. Feels great. Yeah. But I always have to like track, so that's cool. So there we go.
That's I've got my list that I do, and I've got it broken down by like it's like bullet pointed, and I check it every single week, but I've got so many folks that are long standing that there's almost like an order to things. It's almost like everyone knows where they sit in the order. And I get called out if folks are in a wrong order or if I didn't like emphasize a name the way I typically do. Folks are, it's definitely, you start getting a rhythm. It's kind of like, spitting lyrics and stuff. You just kind of get into a rhythm with it.
I get it. And I like when shows do that too. So I need to make sure we start getting our rhythm. Well, look, thank you all for supporting on Patreon. It means the world. We think of Patreon as our tip jar. So if you're willing to drop a tip or able to, we thank you so much. The Patreon shows are our thank you for that. If you don't have tip money that week, that month, that year, whatever, it's cool. We got you. You're good. All right, Logan. We are in the Xbox community specific, dealing with the Wake of Redfall, which has launched to a number of disappointing, frustrating reviews. We talked about that extensively last week. Since last week's recording, where we had a pretty good chunk of time in it, I have beaten the game. And so I don't feel the need to shed too much light on the beating the game aspect because my score wouldn't change. Score is not even the right, because we don't do actual scores. We more like discuss them. But I would not change anything I said. I did enjoy my time for all the flaws, but it's still Redfall, and I get it. I don't know necessarily that the game could be fixed at its core. You could improve performance, you could improve AI, but I don't know that the game's fundamental core principle problems could ever be corrected in the ways that, like, say, Sea of Thieves, which had a good idea and then was fleshed out over years. Grounded, State of Decay, all launched bare bones and then grow into something. I don't know that's going to be the case with Redfall, but nonetheless, this is a game I want Game Pass members to give it a shot on their own. Don't try and rush it on a timeline. And I think you might find something there. And if you don't, put it down and move on, because there are better games out there for sure. But I did find the fun in it. I did have a good time with it. Kind of in this, we've had a run of games to cover. In the last few weeks, we've done Dead Island 2, Minecraft Legends, Jedi Survivor, Redfall. I mean, it's just been big game after big game. And so in the Xbox community, it feels like now we're going to catch our breath for a moment. And that allows us to look forward towards the Xbox showcase and whatnot. But it feels like we had this big run of games, including 2 Xbox first-party titles with Legends and Redfall.
Yeah, well, we still got another one too. So we got a third-party one coming up.
Diablo.
Yeah.
Server
not even
today.
Oh. Yeah, we don't even.
No, I'm dumb. Well, we have a break, and then there's Diablo, then there's Street Fighter, which we're gonna get both of, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
So,
which is good to know.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's It's been an interesting week. Do you want to jump in? Because I know our Double Down Diablo fans would love us to dive into the server slam for the illiterates, or not the illiterates. What is it? What do they call it? What do you? Oh,
I
I
don't know.
can't
You
think of.
said double down, and I've been triggered, activated like a white girl whose Starbucks order is wrong. Ugh. Oh my gosh. Double downs are gross. And all our amazing patrons, I love you and I support you. I appreciate your support. But
Mhm.
double downs are nasty and you need to stop. Ugh.
Okay, but how many double downs would you eat for Redfall? Like, what is the double down number out of
I would
10?
never eat a double down. Ugh.
Okay,
There's no double down
how many?
barometer for me.
Okay, well, I would probably say that I'd probably say it was like 5 double downs for Redfall
I don't
out
understand
of
this
10.
reference. I don't understand the scoring system. I will never give a double down. It's the worst.
You
The
just
only
gave a
way
double
I
down.
The only way I double down, I think is at the 10 tier threes or whatever. I think it was.
Hmm.
So I'm like actively rooting against our Patreon, is what I'm saying,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're
You
they're
don't want
dumb.
to eat a double down,
No, no.
which is starting to become sacrilege,
Ugh.
but that's okay.
Mm,
We'll figure that out.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I at some point this weekend I have to find time to go back into Diablo 4 because I've played a healthy chunk of it. Like I've already got the wolf pup, but they've got the horse mount trophy that I want to get because I'm looking forward to that special edition. I got that collector's thing coming in
Mm-hmm.
June. The game's coming out. Like, man, I'm looking forward to that. I was watching Street Fighter the other day, and damn, that game looks cool. That
Mm-hmm.
game looks so cool. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my god. So yeah, but you brought up finding the fun in Redfall, and I wanted to touch on this a little bit because I think we had pretty strong opinions when it first came out based on the experience that we had, and I don't think that we were wrong in our analysis of what we experienced.
Mm-mm.
I think
No.
we were spot on with what most people found egregious about the game,
Mm-hmm.
but for whatever reason, there's still something fun to do in that game in kind of a crackdown way.
Yep.
In a way that like you can just kind of roam around because I've seen there's folks that I've seen just kind of go into the game blind, knowing obviously that there's a lot of conversation around it, and they've had fun with their friends just going in shooting things. They get kind of trepidatious around the first vampire because they're not quite sure like how it's going to play out, and
Mm-hmm.
they're surprised about how fast it is, and then as they kind of play along, as they kind of get like further in the game, they kind of start to realize what we see as like flaws in the development of the AI, they see as a difficulty curve, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a different approach. Like we were sold an action shooter with immersive sim, they're seeing more of a kind of slow paced horror,
Mm, yeah.
and it's very interesting to see like where the failings were, both not only in some of the development for the game but also the marketing of the game.
Yeah.
And I think it very easily, because we were talking about the atmosphere, like the audio in this game is absolutely amazing, and it
Mhm.
really does lend credence to the idea that this really should have been pushed more as like a horror game. Like it should have
Mhm.
been more of like an Alan Wake 2 kind of thing, or like a Returnal or a Silent Hill. Like I think if they had gone that route, I think this game would have been
Man,
really
if
kind of. Go ahead, jump
well,
in.
I've thought a lot about this. I wish it would have been marketed as a $30 Far Cry Lite with horror vibes.
Yes.
You done that, man, you're golden. You are golden. Because this game is that. It's not a tentpole title to carry Microsoft's banner in 2023, which we were all
Yeah.
led to believe. It is a $30 Far Cry Lite, smaller experience, a la The Outer Worlds, a la Pentiment, a la Grounded. And those games critically were received at different levels. I don't mean that. What I mean is like the the breadth of the experience was meant to have a more limited scope, and Redfall has a very limited scope.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that, wholeheartedly okay with that. And I want people to be okay with that. But I don't think it's fair that Xbox charges $70 for this experience. I think that is extremely disingenuous. And Phil Spencer seems to be quite aware of that problem.
Yeah.
But how many times have we said on this show Xbox has a marketing problem to our own detriment, right? Like I get blowback regularly for saying Xbox is a marketing problem. Also, I'm not a trader. I don't work for Xbox. I cover Xbox for enjoyment and hobby, and they owe me nothing, and I owe them nothing. So remember that, everybody. And it frustrates me because they have a consistent problem communicating with their customer base about what experiences they're planning to offer and what they can offer. And that bums me out, man. It really
You,
does.
I honestly, when I look at Xbox marketing, I see where some of the missteps were. Obviously, in hindsight, because we don't see them until we get the finished product and we're able
Sure.
to really kind of look and see, like, okay, well, what did we get versus what did we expect?
Mm-hmm.
I really see the Xbox marketing, the way that they've gone about it is far more ambitious and optimistic than I think they're willing to admit some of the experiences that they're delivering on are holding up to. And it kind of feels like Xbox marketing as a whole feels kind of like one of those I don't even know what you'd call them, but the guys that like used to hype up the wrestler before the wrestler would grab the microphone and start
Hype
taking
man. Hype
hype
man.
men. Okay, so yeah, but that's effectively like they're hyping up these things to be so grandiose
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like maybe they know that they want to have some of these big wins, and they're hoping
Mm-hmm.
that some of these games will hit and
Mm-hmm.
hit the way that they hope they do.
Mm-hmm.
That when we actually get them, we're like, oh well, this hype man came in and promised us the spectacular of the century for this match. The
Mm-hmm.
wrestler goes in and gets hurt, and they have to call the match early, and we get a horrible WrestleMania as
Right.
opposed to what would have been like one of the greatest matches of all time, kind of thing. Would
And that
you?
sucks.
Yeah,
I,
would you agree? Is that fair?
I would. And Spencer alluded to the idea that their mock reviews were double digit lower than what the actual critical and
Yeah.
user reviews were. And that tells me that there's a problem. Either someone somewhere wasn't communicating properly. Either their mock reviews could not have universally been so off unless the process was flawed. And that is a problem to me in and of itself, because there's no way objectively, when you have AI like that or you have clipping problems like that, that you don't ping that. Now, I do think, and I want to make sure I choose my words carefully, I do think there is an inherent vibe bias between Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo. And I don't mean that the reviewer of said game from said and at said site will, oh, this is a Nintendo game, immediate 9. It's a PlayStation
Mm-hmm.
game, immediate 9. Xbox, immediately down. That's not what I mean. That doesn't happen. Not around your accredited GameSpots, IGNs. They don't do that. And if you believe that they do that, you got a problem. You look at it, enthusiast sites, Xbox era rating it a 9. I'll call that out every day. That was a terrible decision because it was
Mm-hmm.
disingenuous to the user base and fans that went there expecting a certain experience, and suddenly they come back jaded. They did more damage than good, and then they doubled down on it with a terrible article later. And I think that is painful and frustrating. So when I look at the process to which that Microsoft is soliciting feedback, they need to make sure they've got realistic feedback with stages of redundancy to make sure they're getting a clear picture, and then they communicate that picture well with their marketing team so that the
Yeah.
marketing team sets the appropriate expectations. Because while I do think there is a vibe bias, because if you're PlayStation, you're feeling good 90% of the time. You can play 99% of the games on the market and have a good time. Nintendo, you can play a more select variant, but most of the games you get out of first party are pretty darn solid. With Xbox, you don't quite get that. You can play 90% of the games on the market pretty darn solid from third party, and you got a lot of great experiences which speak to people like you and I. Sea of Thieves, Forza, Halo. Uh, there's a number of other first party titles that we enjoy, and then the third parties. But there is a vibe difference between the ecosystems, and I think it comes from the fact of how they're willing to compete. So I don't know if I actually answered your question because I covered kind of multiple aspects, but
Yeah.
they need redundancies in place to communicate properly with their marketing team, and then their marketing communicate with their customer base. Did that make
Yeah.
sense? Did I
Yeah.
take you too far? Okay.
No, it does. It does make sense. They definitely need to address why the reviews are so different. And I think that Phil speaking to that is a clear answer that he's aware that there was a discrepancy and that
Mm-hmm.
that needs to get addressed, because I think that's where you have to really, because I understood from the Phil Spencer interview, and we're rehashing old stuff, but to look at it from a different light, it's clear that they're willing to ship a game that has features complete and crashes within a tolerable percentage.
Feature incomplete.
No, feature complete, because that was his statement. His statement was that it hit the creative vision that they were going for, and that it was stable enough to launch, which to
Okay,
me
I see
says
what you're
that,
saying.
yeah, to me it says that game was feature complete, because if it was missing features, they would have scrapped the feature completely
Mm-hmm.
and pushed it out in a state that didn't have that specific feature.
Mm-hmm.
um in this case, it did all the things that they wanted it to do creatively,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a stable enough product to be able to put out, which is why they didn't delay it.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the two factors that they look at when launching games. Does it
Mm-hmm.
do what they wanted to creatively, and will it do it without crashing so much that people can't play it?
Right. Okay, I'm with you.
So, looking at what Phil had said, it's definitely clear that he's aware that maybe they need to look at reviews internally,
Mm-hmm.
and add a third metric, like, is this game fun? And
Mm-hmm.
if the game is fun and they think it's going to hit really well, um make sure that it like, you gotta, and unfortunately, I think the third party, or I think these mock reviews, from what I've learned, is that these are all kind of third party companies that are doing these, that they're
Mm-hmm.
the ones doing it. So maybe it's just a matter of finding different reviewers. Maybe it's a matter of testing it with different studios. Maybe it's even a matter of putting out like a demo or like the game preview, like Grounded
Mm-hmm.
did. Like Grounded didn't have story when it first came out in game preview. It didn't have half of the stuff that it has now, but that's kind of what game preview is for. And I think this
Mm-hmm.
game would have been a perfect pairing for game preview,
Oh
because
yes.
they would have gotten a lot of the feedback that they got from the reviews early, and they
Mm-hmm.
would have been able to work on those and build those out. And instead of being like a Far Cry light, we would have gotten like an Xbox first party Redfall or Far Cry.
Imagine if they had done the early access. Game Pass members play for free. You can pay $30, bite back if you want now, and get the full release
Yeah,
later. But if you had done that now, when the game released, for targeting full release of fall around Halloween, do an
yeah,
event, tie in some cross marketing costumes with Sea of Thieves, with Halo, with whatever, you could have had something special there. And then you would have known your problems. That's not to say they'd all be fixed. That's not to say the core elements, but this game is exiting early access. Going for
yeah,
full release is a very different message than $70. Let's go.
yeah,
And it sounds like, based on the interview that Spencer shared, that part of that lesson has been learned. The kicker with all of that is, how many times you got to learn that, right? What did Halo
yeah,
teach you? What did Sea of Thieves teach you? What did Grounded teach you? What did State of Decay teach you? Crackdown 3. What did these lessons teach you over the years that you're taking forward? And why, at various points, is there a regression? Because I would
yeah,
argue they did a great job learning from Sea of Thieves, that took them into several lessons with other places. And then I would argue that Crackdown 3 should have taught a lesson that Redfall did not learn. Now,
yeah,
there is the element, and I think any listener that's listening might be considering this too, that, well, Bethesda and Xbox proper kind of operate separately, right? They
yep,
do, in terms of marketing. I know that from their own review process. How we get review coverage for Bethesda is different than Xbox proper and such. Minecraft Legends being a recent example, as in Redfall being a recent example. Um, but maybe that's a problem, right? Maybe
yeah,
that's an inherent issue as well. Um, so there are just things to consider with this that you hope fixes itself going forward. But in a world where Xbox does not see themselves as competing with PlayStation in a one-to-one category, and they see themselves expanding into a cloud-based element, cloud-based system, and the statement is made by Phil Spencer that one big game, one good game, and this was misquoted too often, which is frustrating. And I think about some of the people I called out earlier.
Yeah.
When he's misquoted as saying good games aren't going to sell consoles, that's not what he's saying exactly. He's saying that one big video game, one great game, one Tears of the Kingdom quality game is not going to flip the switch to say, all right, Xbox is beating PlayStation. He is
Yeah.
correct in that, right? You're not going to go sell your PlayStation for that purpose.
Yeah.
But you might pick up an Xbox, and I think that's where fans are frustrated,
It was an interesting thing, because I like hearing what he said. I 100% see why he said that. Because he recognizes that he's basically telling fans like, hey, Starfield isn't going to be the thing that makes Xbox better than PlayStation. And that's not what they're going for. They're not trying to get the better PlayStation. If they wanted to be the better PlayStation, they could do it, but that's not what they're going for. They're going for Starfield being a good enough experience to push gamers to consider buying an Xbox for that, the way Spider-Man finally pushed me over the edge to get a PlayStation 4, as a bundle, because I was not into that ecosystem at any point.
It was worth it, wasn't it? It's been Spider-Man great.
Spider-Man's fantastic. I can't wait to play the same world in Spider-Man 2.
Are you being facetious?
I am 100% being facetious.
Because I'm all in. I'm the other way. Like, I like it as the same world because it'll be better, but like I know I like it. So
let me correct myself real quick. So I'm being facetious I'm being catty about the people that are complaining about game worlds being the same for sequels. I don't care if Spider-Man 2 is in the same world. I played Miles Morales. It was already the same world. I already love that game too. So I don't care if the developers want to put the same world into a game and give me a different story. It's called DLC. It's called a sequel. We do it all the time. It doesn't have to be a fresh experience. So let me correct myself on that before you go hard on me.
I wasn't going to go hard. I was just going to say counterpoint. Sometimes I like that. Right.
No, yeah.
Just that I can play more of that game. Yeah. God of War Ragnarok, in my mind, is not as good as the first God of War.
Yeah.
It was more of the same. And I also think I played it wrong, which I will elaborate on when we talk about Redfall and Ainsley Bowden.
Let's do that.
You want to
afterwards after your point, but I want to jump into that because I think that's a strong point.
Yeah. I'll say that I like when a game is more of what I like. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that. I enjoy that. The Arkham games are my favorite video games, not my best ones, right? But they're my favorite. But arguably, they're more of the same each time. The difference with Arkham and God of War does this as well, but they add things to it, right? But it's more of the same, and I like that. But I also recognize where that could be a drawback. You're talking about Spider-Man being in the same world. Well, Spider-Man's set in New York. Right now, you can go Queens, Bronx, for Miles and Peter, but it's set in New York. I want that, right?
We're not going to have Spider-Man in Texas. That's just not
right. It doesn't even in LA. The buildings aren't big enough. But at its core, the onus is on the developer to use that. I broke him. To use that setting to make a compelling story, which you can absolutely do. You know? So
I think.
Go ahead.
I think you're spot on. Like it's less about where the setting is and more about the characters that you love in that setting and what those characters are doing that pushes us to want to have the discussion of like why this is a good game and why this is a good sequel and stuff like that. We want to see not necessarily like what's the fidelity of the building of the Empire State. Did they get a better texture on that? It's like, yeah, they could. They possibly could, but a lot of times some of that stuff just has to get completely rebuilt because sometimes they want to do stuff that the old world isn't possible to do. Like it's just, you can't actually do it. So sometimes it may look like the same thing, but they actually just have to go and redo everything on it regardless. So there's plenty of times where it may look the same, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now we prior to recording, we were talking about Redfall reviews. I had beaten the game, you have not, and I said to you that having beaten Redfall, I wouldn't change a thing I said, both on Cast Co-op and here on XEP. Beating it, having fun with it, doesn't change my objective thoughts on the game. The game still has the same flaws, still has the same issues. The same core principles are bad. And while we don't score games, I said that I agreed with everybody that went between. I think I said 6 and 7, but I recognize there are 5s out there, and I was like, yeah, I get it. Again, we don't do review scores per se, but I got to have a lot more fun with the game, I think, than say we used Ains as our example, but in general, reviewers. And can you expound a little bit on kind of what your thoughts were there?
Yeah, we were talking about how we effectively, like, we both had kind of our initial impressions on the first few hours that we had played before we jumped on to record. And for all intents purposes, I don't think that we were wrong in our analysis. I think that we were spot on as far as like what we thought versus what everyone else thought. We saw what was wrong with the game, and we could recognize that in the first few hours of playing. And the difference I think that was is that we ended up playing it after it had, like, just before it had launched. Like, we had like maybe 24 hours worth of time before the game actually came out, but we played through most of it, and we sat down and we got to kind of play it without having to worry about the embargo. And I think, honestly, and seeing other people jump into the game later after launch, regardless of reviews, we definitely had what I would say objectively is a lot more fun with the game than
Mm-hmm.
what seemed to come across with a lot of the reviews. And it makes me wonder, like, and the reason why we brought up Ains is because Ains spent a lot of his life grinding out that
Mm-hmm.
game to get it completed and reviewed properly.
And he did a great review. Like, let's credit that.
Yeah,
He never listens to this show, and he always gives me a hard time. But like, his review was solid. He put what 30 hours in before reviewing
yeah,
it, and he did that in like what 3 days,
roughly.
4 days.
Yep.
That's not how I
Yeah.
want to play games. Whew. He
But
also
I
has a
mean,
written site versus us.
yeah, and it's clear that the difference there is he much like I and I agree with this. If you're going to properly review a game to have like a score with it, you probably should finish the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know if there's something at the end of the game that's going to really change your opinion about it until you actually get to the very end. But there's something about the amount of time that you spend playing a game, that it feels weird, because like we had a really good time with the game, but we weren't pressured by embargo, and it didn't feel like he really had a good time with the game. And I would love to kind of get his thoughts on this if he does happen to listen to this, or someone hits him up about it, to see like if he had a lot of fun with the game, because I think you can have fun with the game. I think the difference being that we weren't pressured by embargo to do it, and that's where I started to notice some of the differing opinions about whether or not Redfall is worth your time. Because I think folks having to push through what they did in the amount of time that they were given to do it may have changed their opinion on how fun this game is, because they were so frustrated by the bugs. And the reason why so many people don't really talk too much about the technical aspects, in my opinion, on
Mm-hmm.
like reviews and stuff, is because we're promised by the developers when we talk about these things with them that day one patch will fix this. And there's just kind of this assumed knowledge that day one patch will fix most of the bugs. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's like 2 week patch fix most of the bugs. But
In a good scenario, yes.
yeah,
Like Jedi, pretty solid right now. That the latest patch, like Jedi runs great now.
yeah,
If
very
we
few
had
hiccups.
very few, and it looks great. I'm running in performance mode now. It's running wonderfully. It's beautiful. Like I've beaten the big bad. I think I got cleanup left in the game. These latest patches have made it a much better experience, and I hope that anybody that waited jumps in now, because you're going to have way more fun, I think,
Yeah.
than the reviewers, and then even me, because I lost hours due to crashes early on. Haven't had a single issue of late, save one little freeze point, and that was clearly just a one-off.
Yeah. And I do not understand how this works, but 2 weeks for like Jedi makes a world of difference. So I don't understand, like, and maybe this is just my lack of knowledge when it comes to game development stuff, but it feels very odd that 2 weeks can make such a difference in the stability of a game after launch than if they had just delayed it 2 more weeks. So
Yeah, I don't know.
I
I
don't.
know on the YouTube side, like they're pressured to get their review out because that's when the algorithm is going to be most successful. That's when they're going to make their money. So they
Yeah.
got to give it a score, have the questioning face and the all caps, my honest opinion on, it's like, all right.
Shocked face .jpg.
Yeah. My favorite aspect of like all the people that do the my honest opinion, which is a lucrative thing, and I got no I click on them. So
Yeah.
credit, like
It
Mr. Matty
works.
plays, yeah, it works. Like he does a lot of the my honest ones. But when I see that, it implies that the other reviews are dishonest. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like my honest review as opposed to the other ones. And I know that's
And
not how it's meant. I get that. It's tongue in cheek. It's fun, but it's you got to play that algorithm game
yeah,
if that's your job, if YouTube is your work,
there
versus your
should,
hobby.
maybe that's what we need. Maybe at XEP, we need to come out with the most dishonest reviews, the shillest of the shill.
I'll do that right now. Redfall, 9 out of 10.
Double
Fantastic
downs.
experience. Oh, no, don't even. I would never do that to our audience, in jest or in reality. No, we should do some sort of like goofy thing like that.
I can't believe Redfall saved Xbox. Make
Yeah.
that the
Yeah, there you go. Well, all right. So let's transition here. By the way, we're having a lot of fun this episode. It is a real relaxed episode. I hope you guys are enjoying it. We're just taking a different run this week because we had so many big hits and big news stories, and I'm enjoying just relaxing. This whole on the video side, Logan, I'm going to be running the trailers from every single E3 event from 2019 on. Just kind
nice.
of on loop. So all the
I love
viewers have
those.
been able to see those, the trailers and what Xbox was saying in 2019, what they were saying in 2020, 2021, 22. All
It's
of that has been
interesting.
playing on loop. It is interesting because they
A lot of
even did
promise.
there was a lot of promise too, but they did that idea of like all the games here are going to be out in the next 12 months, right?
Yep.
And I actually liked that message a lot at the time. I think they need to reword it a little bit, but the idea there is like, why do you have an Xbox? And that kind of brings us to this upcoming showcase. We're about a month out. Xbox Bethesda showcase takes place. We're going to see a lot of Starfield, of course. You're going to see a lot of whatever Xbox is bringing to the table. And then you've got Summer Game Fest after that. Which is likely where you see a showcase extended, likely where you see deeper dives, where you see interviews,
Is it
stuff like that.
after or is it before? I thought it was before. Am I wrong?
Oh, Summer Game Fest is a string of events, right?
Oh,
Like it's not
gotcha.
like a
Okay.
one.
I
So
thought
I'm
you're.
sure they see Xbox is included in the presenter, like the people
Yeah.
going with Summer Game Fest. So I'm sure you'll get,
My bad.
little tidbit type stuff. No. It's a good question because I don't see a world where we have 3 showcases, Xbox or Starfield, Xbox at Summer Game Fest. I don't see that, right?
Yeah.
So the
That'd be
bulk of
weird.
what you get for Xbox is going to be at their event. And the question is like, what are they going to have? And we had people write in and ask us about this stuff. And I'm curious, after Redfall, but the pressure on Starfield has to deliver. We know Microsoft put in more resources to Starfield. They already had the year delay from the ever confident Todd 11/11/22 or whatnot. What are the expectations for this showcase? And then I suppose by default, what does Starfield need to do to save face for this year? And I said this last week, Logan. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling here, but like you look at Xbox's releases over the last few since the Series X, actually.
Yeah.
Flight Sim, Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Age of Empires, Ghostwire Tokyo, Deathloop, Minecraft Legends, Redfall, all All but Redfall, very good games,
Was
very well received.
Grounded part of
In full release, I should say. Yes.
technically? Yeah,
Yes. That came out,
understood.
I believe, on Xbox One with early access.
That's
Um,
true. Touche.
but full release did take place in that era as well. And I don't think it's fair for people to be like, well, that was a Bethesda, that was Obsidian. Nope, they bought them, it's theirs. They get the good with the bad. If you're going to give them Redfall, you got to give them Ghostwire. You got to give them this or that,
And
Xbox.
that was what Phil Spencer had said. Like there is an expectation when studios come into the first party market, like that people have. There's an expectation there, so you have to include them, folks.
Mm-hmm. Good and bad. Got to get them both. So I feel like we've had a good Series X slew of Xbox releases, and I think the Redfall just stings because we were told it was this tentpole $70 event. But now with a showcase, we're less than a month from a showcase. Starfield is all eyes, all hands on deck, all eyes on. Got to perform. What are we thinking? How are you feeling? What do you expect to see? No true format to this at the moment, but where are you at, bud?
Honestly, like two things. First off, my expectations for Starfield have tremendously dropped. Just as far as like what I think that game will be. And a lot of that has to do with what I loved about the Outer Worlds, because I think honestly I think the Outer Worlds is a better Bethesda game than Bethesda can make, and I'm very curious to see what Starfield does because it's touting a lot of the stuff that I think I was interested in with No Man's Sky, but love with the Outer Worlds. So I'm ready for Todd Howard to reel me in here with this title. It speaks to everything that I love about that whole genre. Is like I love space sci-fi. I mean, I'm a Trekkie. I'm a Star Wars nerd. You know, I love the Mass Effect games. They're fantastic. But there seems to be this sentiment amongst different communities, both on PlayStation and Xbox's side, that Xbox is make or break on Starfield. And while I don't disagree with that on like a myopic scale of like 2023, I'm so overhearing people talk about like, oh, everything's riding on Starfield now. No, not everything's riding on Starfield. Get that out of your head. Xbox will continue if Starfield flops. We have to stop looking at these big games as the savior of the console. And yeah, no, I don't disagree that the 360 was a stellar era for Xbox. Red Ring of Death aside, the software was there, and I think the software is what always drives the hardware to be worth having, obviously. But I I don't know. I think a lot of folks are just like hype chasing at this moment. They're searching for that next adrenaline hit, and they're hoping that Starfield's going to be it. They're hoping that Starfield's going to be the Tears of the Kingdom for this console. And I don't know, man. I'm kind of overhearing about people saying like everything's riding on Xbox or on Starfield, because it's so much pressure to just like that's not I don't think Todd Howard wanted the entire console generation to hinge on the performance of his game. I think he wanted to make a really cool experience. And I think he wanted that experience to be in a world that they hadn't played around in. And I think that that's what's been driving that studio for the last 6 or 7 years. And it sucks that the purchase of their studio and ZeniMax as a whole is now forcing them into a situation where they have to be held, they have to be one of these pillar games and hold up the console generation. It sucks because there are so many really good experiences on Xbox right now, but they're not AAA banger first single player adventure games that are going to go up against the likes of Sony. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to Starfield. I've definitely brought my hype down a lot for it, just to kind of keep myself in check. And I'm going to be very, kind of measured going into it. This showcase is really got to show me what's coming in the next 6 months to a year, though. Like not just like hopefuls, but like what they feel really confident in. Like these projects are getting close to being gold. or are getting within the next 6 months gold. I would love to have games be announced and not just be like a teaser for something that's coming in the next couple of years after you take into account delays. Like I'm so happy for Hi-Fi Rush because it is a fantastic game that was just shadow dropped, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't need it to be shadow dropped. I just need to not know about it 2 years in advance.
Mm-hmm.
But
Let
that's kind
me.
of where I'm at.
So, Logan, I want to talk to the Xbox fans, the
Mm.
ones that bought an Xbox. You look at my background, you see Halo helmets, you see God of War hammers, you see Sea of Thieves chests. I love games of all types, of course, but I do love Xbox. I had such a blast with Recore. I really did enjoy Crackdown 3 for all its flaws. 900 hours in Sea of Thieves. I love Xbox games. Halo, goodness gracious, so much Halo in my life. Even the Nerf guns are right over there, right? Hear me when I say this to you, Xbox customers, potential customers, fans. Xbox does not make Tears of the Kingdom style games. They don't make God of Wars. They don't make Ghost of Tsushimas. They've not done that in a decade. That's just not, there is no way to point to a game in Xbox's catalog, current or even a decade back, and say this is that level experience. That's not even how they compete on the market any longer. And it's important that as a customer or potential customer, you make peace with that, because the proof is in the pudding, and that pudding, that particular pudding, has not been produced. What they have done is provide you variety, lots of games, lots of smaller experiences, lots of multiplayer centric experiences. Gears 5 underplayed and fantastic co-op experience. I really enjoyed the competitive elements of it. Halo Infinite launched very well. It did not deliver on its 10-year vision and consistent content, but there's a great game there to be had. Sea of Thieves is a wonder that is unique unto itself, grounded, unique unto itself. They have a fantastic catalog of games. But if what you are asking for is a Tears of the Kingdom, what you are asking for is a God of War, the Xbox has not proven, nor I would argue even tried to prove, that that is what they're going to give you. So to place that pressure on Starfield, on Todd Howard's team, is irrational. It's foolish. And it's not something that you should endeavor in. It's not something that Xbox's marketing team should allow. And I hope that this new showcase proves that. I hope they do address the frames per second. We got several questions about frames per second on Redfall versus Starfield and what they have upcoming. I hope there's clear messaging. Phil said there would be, but putting the pressure on Starfield to be something that Xbox has not shown once that they could do or were willing to do or had pursued is not a rational effort. And so keep that in mind as you go into this showcase. Whatever they show you, the closest thing that could be at this showcase that I think falls into that category, Logan, might be Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
Maybe. And maybe not. For me to say that it is irrational and not logical. We played Hellblade Senua's Saga. Nope. Senua's Sacrifice, pardon me. Great video game. Really good sound design and such. But even when it released on PlayStation exclusively, it wasn't God of War. It didn't try to compete with God of War. It was its own thing. So we have to be careful about expecting what we have a track record and precedent to expect. And I hope that doesn't sound doom and gloom, because it's not. And again, I play my Xbox every single day and I love it and I'm happy with it. Just beat Redfall, right? For all its flaws. Enjoyed Crackdown for all its flaws. Sea of Thieves, State of Decay are my jam. Halo, my jam. Love Gears of War. But I don't turn them on expecting Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, and Spider-Man. That's a silly thing to do. That's my thought.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree.
Was that too? Did I lambast too much? Because I wasn't trying to.
No. I 100% agree with what you're saying, man. It seems like one of those situations where we have to change the mindset. We have to change the narrative about what Xbox is trying to do, because otherwise we're going to be chasing something that we're never going to get. And Xbox hasn't been trying to do that. They've been trying to do something different. And I'll be interested to see what games come along that do try to go for what I think a lot of PlayStation fans live on,
Mm-hmm.
and see, like, how do they approach it. But there are a lot of really fantastic titles that you talked about that you can play right now that should be given the time of day. And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to be getting some really cool games, and that's kind of what I'm hoping with the showcase, is that we get a better idea of what games are closer to launch. Because right now we have a huge list of games that were announced, but we don't have years or ideas on how far along they are for any of them. Like, I know Contraband,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about it, so I have no clue how far that is. Same thing with Avowed, but based on what Phil Spencer had mentioned during that interview is that he's been playing good builds of Avowed. But are they like late builds? Are they early builds? Like, where in the development of the game are those? So I love the idea of telling us like what's coming in the next year, but I would really love to know what those are in a more realistic perspective, and less like which of those are the ones that we can expect for 2024.
Mm-hmm. And I think they tried that in 2022. They
Yeah.
tried that with their like all in the next year, and all they need to do is that same message, but say intended for the next year. Say
And
intended, and you're good.
which is funny because the press releases that they put out, the imagery that they had that had like the list of like all the stuff for 2022, all the stuff for 2023, did have that caveat. Like, all of this stuff is scheduled for there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's tentatively scheduled. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like the messaging wasn't there for the actual showcase,
Mm-hmm.
but it was definitely there in the text for
Mm-hmm.
when they talked about it later on.
I'm so we know so much and so little about Xbox's portfolio for the future. Avowed, Contraband, Indiana Jones, Fable, Everwild, Perfect Dark. I feel like there's more that I
Mhm.
just like there is more. What I would like to see is what's happening for the next year, and unless there's an acquisition in there, and I don't mean like a Activision, but I mean unless there's an acquisition of a studio, hey, call it like show me what you got. Show me what you got, and do not expect updates to Halo and Sea of Thieves to carry any weight unless you're talking about the big Halo Battle Royale. Um, and maybe branch that off from Infinite. Don't call it Infinite. Just say Halo Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Um,
I can tell you right now, Sea of Thieves probably won't have another Pirates of the Caribbean moment as much as I want it to.
mhm.
But yeah, I don't think that's what they're shooting for.
And good. But nobody should miss that Pirates of the Caribbean content. It's great.
Yeah.
Again, unique experiences. You're not getting God of War, but dude, you can go in and have some great adventures with Jack Sparrow. That's dope. Um, Bottom line, you have a lot on the plate. Show me what you got. We also don't know what a lot of their studios are doing. Don't pull the wool off too quickly. Don't show me something 3 years out, 2 years out. Don't show me something that is maybe 2 years out. You need to be confident with what you got on your slate. Why should somebody have an Xbox account? Why should somebody go buy a system? They're at like 18.9 million systems, and I think PlayStation's around 30, 25, 30.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it's 30.
Something like that, which great to both. That's the thing is like, yes, Xbox is losing in terms of console sales, um, but their game is not the same. But show me why I need to recommend somebody go get an Xbox the way I could recommend them back in the beginning of this generation, right? Because I listed the games they've launched in the Series SX generation. Those are some good games. Uh, from barring Redfall, you got some really good stuff in there, and there's a lot to celebrate within that. Give me another reason to re-up that. Why should you resubscribe to Game Pass? Show me
Yeah.
why my account is worth it. Why should it be on my shelf? Because to you and I, Logan, and to many people listening to the show, not in danger of losing us as a customer, but you need more customers. What you gonna do?
Third party exclusives on a Game Pass. Like really, like those are some of the best things that you do for Game Pass is taking a game that most people are expecting to have to buy and throwing it on Game Pass through a deal. More of those. Like those are severely lacking. I think the next big one that we've got is Exo Primal in July.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some great games coming out. Like,
And what made the 360 special, which many kids don't remember, is all the third party exclusive or seemingly exclusive, timed exclusive games. Something that PlayStation has mastered in the time since. But early on, you had Mass Effect and you had Left 4 Dead and you had so many games that you could only play on Xbox first or at
yeah,
all. And now these days it's flipped over to the PlayStation side. And so my hope is that Game Pass and whatnot kind of flips that narrative. And truth be told, like Wolong, Atomic Heart, High on Life, those are big third party games. For admittedly, High on Life and Atomic Heart kind of blew up in their faces for
High in
reasons.
Life or
High on
oh
Life
yeah,
had the
sorry.
Justin Roiland
Yeah.
problem. But
I was
Atomic Heart,
conflating it with Hi-Fi
Russia.
Rush.
Yeah, no problem. But like those things, yeah, that's not really Xbox's fault. But you got to see Stalker. Stalker, not their fault. Got to see that one. That was going to be one of the ones that we're talking about them needing, right? You need those kinds of things only on Xbox, best on Xbox, not phrases we can really say for a lot of big titles. And for God's sakes, showcase, excuse me, yawning. Sorry, audio listeners. For God's sake, show off Hi-Fi Rush. Show off that game. It is awesome. Put that mess on a box. Put it in commercials. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And definitely like there was talks of stuff going on with Sony about potential deals being made. Like I want to have that kind of discussion with Xbox. I think that there's some great studios out there that you could be like, hey, there's some rumors going around that, like when we got the rumors about Hideo Kojima potentially working with Xbox for a cloud game, like that got the whole gaming community up in a fervor. Like stuff like that is fantastic to hear about because it shows that there's a desire to work with Xbox to have stuff like that done. We don't hear that from studios that are like, oh yeah, we're looking to work with Xbox. We hear it like after their games launched on Game Pass, but
Yep.
love to hear more third party studios wanting to work to get their games on Game Pass. Like, why aren't those deals being made? And if they are, like, how come we haven't heard about them?
Yep. Maybe they're saving it. I don't have confidence that they are.
Be interesting.
It would be interesting. And all the scuttlebutt at the moment is that Konami has signed some good deals with PlayStation to bring Castlevania and Metal Gear Solid into the modern age with remakes. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. I hope Xbox was knocking at that door because to leave those things unattended is to the detriment of the ecosystem, I think. Also, I was watching This Week on Xbox because it was a pretty quiet news week, and I just wanted to make sure that I'd covered some stuff and I left out all the CMA stuff because I'm just over it. But
We'll hear news when we hear news.
Right, real news. But they had a cool little segment there for Shoulders of Giants, which is a game that I interviewed the dev teams for, and I've done a number of exclusive Xbox developer interviews this year. Next week is Last Case of Benedict Fox. Talk to the creative director for that one. And there's a lot of Xbox exclusives that get under spotlighted. And some of them are indies, right? And some of them aren't the best indies, but you got if it's here and it's only here, why is it here and only here?
Yeah.
You got to showcase them, spotlight them, tell them.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I think that is a good stopping point. I want to shout out Matt Kennedy 7, the Muffin Mon, Todd Oxtra, a lot of Jam Pack Sam. A lot of people wrote in with questions this week, and we ended up covering quite a bit of them without giving you your credit. And so I apologize for that. Logan, let's save our rogue ally discussion and Edward Barnell's question to next week.
Okay.
Because I think those are good topics to be had, but we're kind of at our point for this week and Mother's Day, and I want to get to see my mama.
I don't blame you.
To see my mama and celebrate Mother's Day. And so, hey, happy Mother's Day to any of the moms that listens to this show, and to any fathers that are fulfilling the role of mother. for any number of reasons. If you're, single dad in it, rock on to you as well. If you're taking care of kids, man, you're awesome. So shout out to you guys. All right, man. What do you got coming up for Keelhauled? Anything special? Is it all mystery stuff?
Mystery's been solved while we were recording. I have to go catch up. So now I got to go figure out what we found out that we've been stuck on for the last 48 hours.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go do that and then go record my thoughts on the voyage. And then we'll be into week 2.
Well, listeners, check out Keelhauled and check out Keelhauled's Patreon and support Logan over there.
Oh, thank you.
Because that is how you're able to financially support him, because the XEP proceeds go to helping me make this show at its best. And we love our patrons and we appreciate all of you guys. Really enjoying the Discord right now because it's all Tears of the Kingdom and fun.
Diablo.
Yeah, no, not Double Downs. Stop it. Yeah. So I'm stoked to see how this server slam goes, because I know Hometown and Ellery and quite a few people are stoked to be diving back in. J-Pack Sam's talking about it. Muffin Mon. Yeah, they're all in there. So cool. And there's good doggy pics right now. There's a lot of dog pics showing up in Discord, which is fun. So, all right, guys. That's going to do it for us. Support Keelhauled, support XEP on all your platforms of choice. That's it for us. Take care, everybody.